Let me, the light has changed in here. Let me turn that down a little bit. I'm playing with the letters as well, and I rearrange them sometimes, and they create a letter geometry or codex that then takes on a completely different form of information. And essentially, I call it my mapping system. I ping into certain pins that were on a map that allow me to then line up my consciousness with those dimensional fields or pieces of the whole of the information that are attached to different subsets of realities that hold vibrational match points and frequencies that then allow me to pull through information, we'll call it that, for lack of better words. So this is about the June solstice, but that's just one layer. This is about many different things, and wherever you are when you're reading this or listening to it, some of it might just feel a certain way. Some of it might create a certain aha, and my intention is always just to shift the awareness and vibration in our bodies and allow an opening to occur. Yeah, so without further ado, again, this is a little bit about the, oops, I just clicked on something. I don't know what I clicked on. So I'm going to read this out loud, and then I'm going to share screen so you can read along with me when I interpret what it means. And I am still, disclaimer, interpreting this as I am with many of the things that I've written. A lot of times I do a video and I say I'm going to go back and finish the video, and I never do. But if you're a word nerd, and you can always go into my blog if you ever choose to and play with the words that way. Okay, this is called June 8th. This is what I wrote it. We shift our directive and open a new canister. Can I stir of worms? We spread our energy. We move it into the corners, all four, and move for the directional pull. The directional pull. Pull envelopes, envelops, so much more. Soma more. We are not held within the same time capsule we once were. For as we spread the word, we combine into a new essence of expansion. Our resonance harnesses a new expression of advancement. We begin to restructure how our division accesses higher counts, higher numbers. For we are not truly divided. We are under one rule, the golden rule, the compassion theory, the golden compass. And we have undone certain measurements spool under the sun. We heliotrope and trip up their switches meant to switch us into a negative direction. And we change course into negentropic, and we harness the subtropic, subentropic layers. Play on words. The tropic of the sun, Cancer, conjunctions, conjuncture points on the scale, tipping the scales, dipping below, land down under movements are then escalated, play on words, to assist in the fracture, bringing us back to fractal, fractionated whole. The entire subscape, subscapula, lower echelon kingdom is then networked. The muscle groups joint together, join conjunction aqueducts, reunite. For there is a counter fight to make these adjustments. Flight of the storm, stormtroopers flight of the concords, concordians. We access another dimensional stream of consciousness, and this creates a Mobius strip of time travel, stripped of outer concoctions, rooster dynamics, flow, and wind speed variations, navigational flux, incapacitation. Play with this. I'm going to go back and play with all of that. These fluid dynamics create a swirl, a sizable schematic that lift the world into one directional course, setting course in a multitude of variations, unsurmisable. This leads to the demise. of certain nefarious architecture constructs built on the destruct mode of circumference. For this new construction is built on phase acquisition, phase development transaction, heat signature frequency code inductions. There is realization here in the pen and paper fluid mechanics, fluid thermodynamics, and just jet propulsion, jet ink, squid ink, squaring off the frequency adductors. Let us spell out this mechanical sedation, plant words. For the radiation that is emitted, admittedly creates a Soma-ch combustion chamber that is noteworthy, suitable for those whose alchemy resonates, twinkle toes. The adductor switch holds an internal capacity, hardwired, hotwired, travel, have, suit, will, travel, that destabilizes those that cannot adjust, equal combust, play on words. For we again reroute the entire system from within, for we are the living organism writ into the final package. For we are leveling up and revealing a long-held capacity for molecular convergence. We have come to a stand still, a silhouette, play on words, a reference to the shadow, yet also holds a frame. Let us unblock the convergence centers, for we are emerging, emulsified, immersified, multiplied, and reduced into a holding soup, suit, aqueduct, soup, suit, riot, zoot, suit, riot, hold back a bottle of beer or throw back a bottle of beer. Aquatic application. There's a station that is now up and running with divine implications. We implicitly imply that our own communication is within reach. Reach out, touch faith, face, about face, steady about, return, face off, lift off. We hold a container, a canister. We hold a portal, a vector, a victory dance. And we move with outnumbered speed to reclaim another brother, soup soul spark that was lost in the shuffle. Every day I'm shuffling. We are not subject to too many subsets, for this new frequency has lingering effects. It creates a codex unparalleled in expansion. There is a new space that is accessed, and it allows us to move faster. No more density patterns for further disruption. Unscrupulous tactics with the desire to scatter are waylaid, are not supported any longer, for they have been thwarted. Their archaic techniques have been disbanded, and we no longer accept their signature frequency of denial. A hopeless insurrection creates a distraction, and a mural of discrepancy lingers to play out. These visual tactics do not allow us to participate in the way they would like, yet this is insignificant. Allow the production node acuity to resurface. There is much that is flooding the surface in service to the Almighty. Come on within, come on without. There's a song, I have to look that up. The essence of creation allows expression is upon us, moving us into such a fluid direction. There is no wave that can be stopped. The entrapment, ensnarement divisiveness is flailing, and we have excelled in excellent communication signal. Strap in, for this will be accessed tenfold by those in the know, in the now. Those with the ability to sing the songs of freedom, redemption, truth, liberty, and justice. Yet these are not the accurate rendition of the language dynamics, but you understand what we reference, what we mean, the golden ones. For we spin out tiny threads and embed in a signature frequency of light that ignites a space in the directory of harmonics. We can then tap into places and spaces that may have resisted before. Unable to play or hear the score, this opens a door to reset how this is accessed and stabilized. This allows for a unified unfoldment, breaking barriers of sound and destabilizing further the access, play on words, accessing beams of subconsciousness. Sorry guys, as I'm reading this, I'm seeing more. So it's like a lot. Interactions, and suberroneous harmonics that have been shut down, or at least singularly held back, play on words. We reference archaeology technology and duplicity. Now, you guys, this is even weirder, but I'm just going to read it because I'm like assuredly assuring myself that this has deeper levels. Duplicity that is no more than a cat's fox and effects leap away. And I was hearing hop, skip, and a jump away, cat's fox, and I was seeing a cat's eye. Held within this thermodynamic spin are more combustion chambers that as they ignite, they activate, actively ignite activity. A series of adjustment equilibriums that harness the frequency debate debacle. Duplicity seeks to convey a false front, but this cannot exist under the number coordinates that are set to unlock the calibration molecules that then unload the whole kit and caboodle. For this spaghetti model cannot forecast the storm that is set to confront the masses. Mistakes made by assets that conformed to a false modeling system. And this unloads a false trajectory that will be skipped over, skyped over. Moreover, it blends and blurs the adjustment lines, lineages into a soupy mixture of establishment changes. Red Rover. We share this in hopes it will stimulate a response of the highest simulation, or stimulation, maybe both. For you must convey this other version, side, PSI, of you, perhaps in time. Perhaps. You must open up, trust that the components, composition held within are lighting the way and touching the hearts, pieces of truth that spark a reveal action, reveal solution, revelation within your own skin suit. Suit up. For your own inner technology is set to move into an upward spin, triangle, triangulation, mobility, yet again, Mobius, Morpheus. And this is right on time, Dorothy. And I was hearing Toto out of Africa as I wrote this. Told tectonics, Toto tectonics, a glass aperture, special subtropics, superfluous, supination, soups. I'll come back to that, obviously. Spoiler alert, the medical advancements that are available are bar none. They outclass the upper crust, and clash with the old system. Whew. I accidentally typed cursed. I wonder if that was a typo or... And then later on, I wrote the obsolete biometrics convey more information that will need to be accessed in this now unavoidable space of biometrics. Whew. Okay, if you made it this far, I'm surprised. So thank you for continuing to play. So I just wanted to go back and share that this, for me, was a very challenging write-up because I continually, when I went back to read it, thought it made no sense. And then I started to look up what some of it means, and I'm starting to put the pieces together. And I'm seeing that it is written similar in quatrains, and then it goes and ties into different pieces of reality, science, not just geometry, but earth information, and so on and so forth. So I'm still unpacking all of this, and I'm really just inviting you to play along. Some of you will know way more than I do about what it is that I'm tapping into. And for some people that are listening, I've been told this doesn't make any sense, but at the same time, I feel something when I listen to this that is activating. And that is the purpose of this, because I'm using language that is mapping into the past, the present, and the future. And so what it does is it makes us more aware of language dynamics. So I'm going to go in and now kind of share screen and break this down just a bit in this particular format. And I'm going to just start with the beginning. We shift our directive and open a new canister. So obviously a canister is a tube that holds something, and I put can I stir. I'm stirring up the pot of worms. So when you open up a new can of worms, all these things come out, and it's like, uh-oh, what is that? And I always think of, when I say can of worms, I think of a wormhole. We spread our energy, we move it into the corners. So part of me was seeing us spreading out on Earth to all four corners, but more, like above, below, inner to outer, north, east, south, west, but more than that. It's like beyond Earth. It's beyond this space. For the directional pole envelops so much more. And I probably misspelled envelops. I don't remember if envelopes and envelops are used interchangeably. But when I went back and looked at this, I realized, okay, this has something else to do with a pole. So this has something, all of this is, when I'm sharing these meanings, wherever we're at consciously is what we will get out of this. So part of this has to do with where we're being pulled, where we're pooling our energy into. It has to do with a pole shift on the earth, and it has to do with poles that are maybe put in envelopes. And I'm not going to go there. You guys might know what I'm referring to. So much more. So there's so much in this one sentence, and it's enveloping us. It's completely, so I see that as a toroidal donut, like it's implosion, okay? Soma more. Now, soma has to do with multiple things, but it has to do with the body, and it's more than the body. Also something to do with the sun, and it has to do with the soma is a plant. Now I'm being called to just play with this just for a moment. So I'm laughing at this, you guys, because it's ironic. So much more, soma more. If you actually go in and look up soma, there's tons. Soma it's referred to so many things. So we're gonna do that. I mean, this is all, I'm on Wikipedia. This is all soma. It may refer to businesses, computing, finance and economics, music, organizations, people, places, science, other uses. So this, part of this is a play on words. It's like, this is everything. It's enveloping. There's nothing that isn't going to be, what we're tuning into is connected into everything. But I'm being called to play with this. If you go into computing, Soma Messenger, a cross-platform instant messaging and communication application. System open market account, a pool of financial assets used by the United States Federal Reserve System. So that was interesting. And I also see it now as OMOS, which later on I refer to OM, and I could see a connection there. And if you go back and if you were to make a bubble chart out of everything that I've written and just apply anything around, let's say, finance and economics, you might find other keywords in here that would tell a code. Okay. Then I went a little deeper here. So much more. I'm going to go past the cell body of a neuron. Now, this is very symbolic to me because I was seeing that this is something that's happening in our body. So we're going through a process of upgrades within our body, inner to outer, and this is going to ripple out and essentially affect our entire civilization and humanity. And by the way, this is happening over time. It's not necessarily all going to happen at once, but we do have activations that are sometimes associated with portals and time in space. This is obviously a relaxant drug. That's not what I was going to refer to. And so I'm going to go into, boy, there's just so much more, right? What I wanted to go into, and of course, I was thinking of like somatic emotional release when you're talking about the cranial sacral, the body. But I want to pause just for a moment and go into the deity, which has to do, Chandra, which has to do with the moon. And I thought that was symbolic as well, because a lot of what we're talking about has to do with the sun in this, and it also has to do with the solar activity. So everything's connected. And I was also called to go into Soma, and I've never explored, haven't explored much plant medicine. So I'm not one to ask about plant medicine, but I'm going to pause for a moment. And we're just going to play with this for a little bit. I'm in the Vedic Soma. And it talks about, again, Indra. Okay. And this is, talks about Indra and Agni are portrayed as consuming soma in copious quantities. Now I'm just going to pause for a moment and we'll just kind of go on Indra because I'm not familiar with all of the deities. This isn't about the deities, by the way. This is about what they represent. This has to do with God of the sky, weather, universe, clouds, rainbows, rain, lightning, thunder, and war. Pretty much everything. So that's interesting. So much more. So all of that, again, another example of everything. And then if Agni has to do with fire, right? Fire talks about southeast. Now this could be taken into a whole other bubble. I'm just going to pause for a moment. And so they talk about, so we could say that it is actually the plant medicine, but from my perspective, it's deeper than that. It's a play on words, and it talks about the Soma Mandala is completely dedicated to Soma, and it's purifying. And we'll go, maybe I'll just do a whole thing on that because I've actually written about this before, and it's been relevant in other writings of mine. And it talks about it's a ritual. It's focused on a moment when the soma is pressed, strained, mixed with water and milk, and poured into containers. These actions are described as a representation of a variety of things, including a king conquering a territory, the sun's journey through the cosmos, or a bull running to mate with cows represented by the milk. The most important myth about Soma is about his theft. In it, Soma was originally held captive in a citadel in heaven. A falcon stole Soma. So funny, I dreamed about a falcon the other night. And delivered Soma to Manu. Human. Huh. So this is fascinating because I see this. We have drunk the Soma. We have become immortal. We have gone to the light. We have found the gods. What can hostility do to us now? And what the malice of a mortal, oh immortal one. And I love that. I think that's beautiful because to me, that represents you're mortal. You've gone to the light. You found, they say the gods, God, whatever, source. What can be done to us now? You can't hurt us, right? Malice has no place here. And there's different interpretations of what this means. And they say that, so I encourage you guys to read this because it's fascinating. And again, I'm a yoga teacher, but the deities to me are fascinating because of what they represent. And it's just talking about violence has no place here, right? It talks about some of the languages, some other examples of where this can be found. Now, even though it talks about, so I'll go into maybe a separate video on this because I really think it's fascinating, and I'll have to find my other writing to go back and kind of see where else this will take us. What directional pull this will envelop us in. So much more. We are not held within. So for me, that is the elixir of life. And the elixir of life to me is the pine cone, the Kundalini activation, coherence, the pituitary, all of the glands and the brain synapses firing, and our bodies becoming immortal. That's immortality. Now, am I saying that that's going to happen on June 22nd, which I think is the day of the solstice? Is it solstice or equinox? I always get those confused. I know it's a little embarrassing. I should know, but okay, that's right. It's the longest day of the year. It's like June 21st, but some places I read, I think was June 22nd. We are not held within the same time capsule we once were. So I want to just say from what I've seen is we were held within this pocket. And what happens was once that capsule opens, we then are able to receive the information. So we were stuck in like a time loop from my perspective. And so now we're not held within that anymore. We might be on habit patterns and cycles, but we're not stuck there anymore. For as we spread the word, we combine into a new essence of expansion. So to me, this also represents the word. The word was one, right? We talk about God in the Bible and the word. And again, this isn't a religious presentation. I'm just playing with the words here. We're spreading out and we're expanding out. And when I see this, I think of what is it when you're, it's like you spread out to receive more and to send out more. And we're talking about it and we're sharing these words of freedom with each other rather than malice. And this is spreading. And we combine into a new essence of expansion. So we become something new and we do this together. We combine our resources individually. Our resonance harnesses a new expression. So I've also been shown that it's like a new human. We're not who we were 5 years ago. We're a brand new person. Certain things are activating within us that we didn't have access to. From one perspective, we've always had access to it. But from another perspective, we couldn't get there before. But now we're here. So it's here. And it's all about resonance. So if you don't know what that is, I encourage you, I could do a whole video just on resonance. I always talk about Dan Winter. Check out fractalfield.com. Check out HeartMath. Look up what coherence is and resonance vibration, being in this consistent vibration that allows us to harness, not only hold on to, but to use it. And we harness a new expression of advancement. So it's a new way of being. We begin to restructure how our division accesses higher accounts, higher numbers. For we are not truly divided. We are under one rule, the golden rule, the compassion theory. So when I wrote, we begin to restructure how our division accesses higher accounts, this is the play on words. It's our division, like mathematical. I'm divided by this. So something divided by something, we're restructuring that. And I've written about this a lot. And I'm not a mathematician by any means, so I'm not sure exactly what it is that I'm seeing, but I'm seeing that what I'm seeing is we have more numbers. We have more letters. We have more. So that changes how much we have to divide into. So instead of dividing 2 into 2, we're dividing 22 and 22. You know, will be 11. Or, you know, I'm just playing with these different. So I'm looking at doubling. Its division is higher. So even though and this is a play on words, so that means our numbers are more because the numbers we have to divide into are more because we've spread out. This also has to do with the size, from my perspective, of Earth. So this has to do with the size of our planet. This has to do with the amount of land, the circumference of Earth is bigger than we realize. And I don't know if that's literal, but I think it is. This is also a play on words of many of us have felt more divided than ever. So we feel divided. And this has been the tactic of, let's say, us versus them, whoever those are. But what they haven't realized is our numbers are more. So this is a play on words too. And what essentially this means is more of us are awake and aware now than we ever were. Therefore, if you're trying to divide us up and divide and conquer, more of us are recognizing that, and it's not happening. It's not working because there's more numbers of us. You can't, it doesn't add up. Also, these higher numbers count. So we're adding more numbers of us to the count. This also has to do with time. Somehow, I'm getting goosebumps everywhere. So our division accesses higher accounts. So this has to do with accounts. That makes me think of transactions. It makes me think of stories when you account for something. It makes me think of things that didn't add up. Now we're like, whoa, this adds up a little differently. And it also makes me think of bank accounts, right? Now we have access to this information that we didn't have access before. And this leads me back. So we're looking at different layers here. Oh, and the higher numbers, I'm hearing, what's that song? It's that 80s jam, 90s big hair band. Anyways, I'm just seeing that it's higher, baby, higher, baby. All right, let me turn this down a little bit. Okay. For we are not truly divided. We are under one rule, the golden rule. So this has to do with do unto others. This has to do with the golden means. This has to do with the golden ratio. This is all a play on words. The compassion theory. Like, oh, maybe if I follow the golden rule, right, that's a theory. But I think that's even a play on words as well. So I just looked that up, and it's a thing. So compassion theory, defined as the wish that others, so I guess I'll make this bigger. Emancipatory theory of compassion in nurseology. Defined as the wish that all others be free of suffering is absolutely necessary for emancipatory nursing practice and praxis. Used to emphasize the centrality that power, relations, have on suffering and the ability to render compassion impossible. Huh. So I don't know what this picture is, but I've got to check that out. Let's look at it, shall we? That could be really fun. I'll include this on a link and you guys can check it out. I'm being called to dig in, so I guess I will. Nurseology. So interesting. So I just think this is so funny, you guys. So if I go back, we are under one rule, the golden rule, the compassion theory. You guys, this to me looks like Earth. It looks like cells in division, right? Dividing cells. It looks like Pisces to the flower of life, which contains them all. These are different subsets, okay? And it's just talking about the biocompassionate space. And this includes social justice, socio-political oppression, health disparities, equitable healthcare policies. So I'm seeing that this is entailing Soma more. And I'll probably have to come back and look at that at a later time too. So we have undone certain measurements, and I was seeing a spool. It was all spooled up and undone. So spool to me you use for fishing. And so that would be the Pisces, right? We've undone that and we've expanded and spread out to now we're in that age of Aquarius. And we have undone certain measurements under the sun. So this has to do with Earth, right? Well, not just Earth. This has to do with our entire Milky Way galaxy, or anything that's affected or under, literally, the sun. So this also has to do with gravity and measure, literally, and I go back to the wormhole. And I'm hearing wormhole adjustments. Like certain adjustments are going to need to be made because now we understand certain things we didn't understand before. And the spool I would have to play with a little bit more. That was just a word that I heard as I was writing. We heliotrope and trip up their switches, meant to switch us into a negative direction. Now, if I play with this, which of course that's what we're doing, let me just read that out loud real quick. We heliotrope and trip up their switches, meant to switch us into a negative direction. And we change course into negentropic. And we harness the subtropic, subontropic layers, the tropic of the sun, Cancer conjunctions, juncture points on the scale. So I'm going to pause just for there because it's obviously all play on words. But the heliotrope is a reference to the sun, helio, the heliosphere. And it's a portmanteau or combination of words. Now, when I looked up heliotrope also, there was more to that as well. So with heliotrope, there was multiple meanings there. And one, of course, is a flower. It also, again, has to do with the sun and the colors. So if you look up heliotrope on Wikipedia, which is where I am now, it's a pink purple color. And I wanted to go to that color because to me, that's pink going into purple. And this, you'll see later, has to do with alchemy and heat. It also has to do with heart and sun, right? And interestingly enough, there's different colors associated on a scale of colors. That's interesting. There's coordinates. Did not know what that was. Web colors are used in displaying web pages. So I guess you use these different coordinates. That's so interesting. The color of key plot objects. Oh, this is so funny. So it's been used in a lot of things. Okay, so coordinates of color. And also, if I go back, it's also a reference to calcium, I believe. Oh, has to do with sun, but it also has to do with bloodstone, jasper, I believe. But it's silicon dioxide, okay? And quartz, jasper, bloodstone. But I thought this was interesting that heliotrope was called the stone of Babylon. They used it as the stone of invisibility. And what I also found interesting was the rain and the solar eclipse was kind of where I went with that. I'm seeing the connection points here. Now, the other thing I wanted to share before I forget, back to the nurses and the compassion theory, a lot of things within that are future things that are going to need to be fixed. So as we come into this field with this solstice point, it's a portal that takes us into more of the compassion, the golden rule, and all of that. And so a lot of those things that I had clicked on earlier with the compassion theory need to be fixed, need to be reset. Insurance, social, political, all of that is going to go through this metamorphosis. So we heliotrope. So we've changed color. Oh, I forgot to go into the flower of. So we heliotrope. Well, here we go. They face the sun and follow the sun through the day. So the flowers actually follow the sun. So this is a big reference to the it's the longest day of the year on June 21st, June 22nd, right? Sun turn. That reminds me of the Greeks assumed it might be a passive effect, presumably the loss of fluid on the illuminated side. And some arguments that it's light that they're responding to, not the sun. So I just find that this is really fascinating. Heliotropic flowers track the sun's motion across the sky from east to west. Oh, I could go into so many different things here, but part of this is us. This has to do with what we're getting activated into, and this has to do with some alignment that we're lining up into. We could call it a portal, whatever you want to call it. So we turn towards the sun, okay? We are, and this is a multiple of meanings, and we trip up their switches, meant to switch us into a negative direction. So really quickly, I had seen that there's information that's been switched on us, which most of us know about. I've seen information on the goal to switch something about the way the earth moves or what we know about the earth, and something that's being done to change us into a negative direction, not a positive direction. You guys, this isn't, I'm not labeling who, what, why, where as. It's irrelevant to the bigger picture. And we change course. So we're the ones saying, no, we're going to go in this direction into Tropic, which is in, it's important for me to share that if you guys don't know what that is, many of you. So I'm going to go into negentropy, and it measures the difference in entropy between, that's not what I want, but basically it's, I believe it's a longer wave. Negentropy is being in the long wave, and we don't want to be in entropy, we want to be in negentropy. And I love this because it's free energy. Free energy. You guys can look this up on your own. This is interesting though. You guys, this is so funny. Are sections of the planes, therefore parallel to the axis of entropy, internal energy. AD and AE are the energy and entropy of the body in its initial state. AB and AC, its available energy. Its capacity for entropy, the amount by which the entropy of the body can be increased without changing the energy of the body or increasing its volume. But this is just into so many different layers. And again, I encourage you to look up, it's free energy. Of course, it's coming from the sun, free energy. And it's not just solar energy. This isn't a reference to solar energy. This has to do with us. He's saying this is Schrodinger and the cat. It's affected in a positive way. A living system imports negentropy and stores it. Now that isn't the exact definition, but it's order. You move back into order. That's what I was trying to get at. Couldn't say it. Okay. And something about switches. I know there is we could say technology that's being utilized with the flip of a switch. It's not working. But on a lot of us is what the kind of the other message of this is. We're changing the course into neg and tropic, basically neg entropy, play on words, and this has to do with tropic, and we harness the subtropic, sub and tropic layers, the tropic of the sun, Cancer conjunctions. So I'm just going to go into this briefly. So we're harnessing this. We're harnessing order. We're harnessing the sun. We're harnessing golden, compassion for each other. Okay, so we all know subtropics. You can go on Wikipedia. Here's a map, gives us an idea of where that location is. The interesting thing is these two areas to me look like scapula, and I write later in this writing about the scapula and subscapula. So these two stood out to me in my writing. I also write about down under, right, in Australia. Also, I wrote the Tropic of the Sun, Cancer conjunction. So this has to do with astrology and astronomy, of course. So for those of you astrology buffs, any information you know about the conjunction with Cancer, let's see, just to play on word, let's play with this just for a moment. So it's a something's conjunct with Cancer. But what I found interesting is when I went in to look this up, somehow it's associated now with Taurus, but back when these certain laws were written, it was conjunct with Cancer. So I recognized that this is, in essence, a time portal. So it's pulling things in like a wormhole, and we're connecting past and future somehow in this moment with this longest day of the year. And we're harnessing that energy. And I keep seeing somebody riding a bull. It's like, wee! Right? That's Taurus. So that was what I'll try to find that in a bit and share that with you guys. Duh. So June 21st is the first day of Cancer, according to the zodiac. And I guess that's based on Gregorian calendars. And I know there's different opinions on that. But this is talking about the Tropic of the Sun, Cancer conjunctions. So we're lining up with that. I also think it has something to do with Taurus. And I don't know anything about astrology really, guys, but I just looked it up. June 21st through July 22nd. So this would also tell me in a code, and I'll just play with this briefly because I'm not sure when Taurus is. Looking up allure right now. Is there a list? Here we go. Well, that's all the way to April. So I could be wrong about that. Like maybe it's coming back around full circle, but I'm pretty sure at least the month of July or June through July, June 21st through July 22nd, maybe that's where I was getting the 22nd from, is significant. Juncture points on the scale. Now, when I say on the scale, that to me is harmonics. Our universe works in harmonics. It also has to do with Libra somehow. And that scale has to do with balance and harmony, liberty, and justice, right? So this is definitely playing into astrology. I'll have to ask a couple of my friends who are into this about it and what it means. This is tipping the scale. And I was seeing tipping like as a play on words as well. Even all of this, I see conjunct as a play on words. Junction, we're coming at a junction point. And I even looked up, I'll go do a second video on conjunction because there's more to that as well. And I could go into that a little bit deeper just because I saved a really good site on that. If I can find it. Okay, it was actually juncture, because I thought, oh, let's play with this a little bit. And juncture is described as a point in time, especially one made critical or important by a concurrence of circumstances. So I was like, ooh, that's kind of fun. So now, of course, I lost my place. But so we'll come back, and I'm not going to finish in this video. I'm definitely going to need to do a part 2. But essentially, it's pinging. Remember, it's a map. Tipping the scales, and I think that's important. When I said that as well, I was seeing a tip of something. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Dipping below. So it's like there's something else here that I will probably figure out later. Land down under movements. Now, the juncture points on the scale. So juncture points on the scale, well, a point of time, especially one especially one made critical or important by a concurrence or circumstances. So this is because of everything, the way it's lining up, it's important. It's an important point in time there where something is tipping the scales. And again, balance, harmony, equilibrium, measurement. Scales have to do with weight. The tipping of the scales, dipping below. So I see that as above and below, the tip and dip. Also, when I put dipping below, I was thinking of land down under movement. So that's play obviously with Australia, and under perhaps the subtropics. So the area maybe in the subtropics. This could have to do with earthquakes. It could have to do with volcanic activity are then escalated, because there is the sun and solar flare activity does directly affect our Earth's, I just was guided to say gravitational pull, but that would mean spin, because gravity in electricity just means spin, if I'm not mistaken. Play on words, I just rhymed. Anyways, I'm such a nerd. And so those are then escalated. They're moved up the ladder, escalator. That is a layer, okay, moving up, which is not a bad thing necessarily, because it's moving us up, and these movements are creating something. Okay, and I could get into predictions, but that doesn't matter, because ultimately we have to come back to love and light no matter what's going to happen. And our Earth is changing. So we are just, we are part of the Earth. We're changing, and so is she. So this, if you look at a map though, this also includes, hello, the United States, most of the United States, the upper tip and tip of Africa, the center of Australia, right? All of these areas, okay? And land down under movements can also mean under the earth. So it's the land that's underneath what we're looking at. This is then, these movements are then escalated. And that also reminds me of tectonic plates spreading out, right? We're creating more space on the planet. The land is moving, spreading out to assist in the fracture. So again, this is mathematical. Something about division, dividing it into something to make more of it somehow. Bringing us back. Now, when I wrote this, I was seeing Back to the Future. So it's bringing us back to fractal, back to the future, fractionated whole. So again, it's a pie being split up, but it's keeping the whole pie together. It's not separating it from what we think is going to be separated. This entire subscape, so we know, and we full scapula, subscapula, play on words, lower echelon kingdom is then networked. The muscle groups joint together. Play on words on joints, muscle in the body, right? Everything is reuniting. Join, conjunction, aqueducts, reunite, reunite. And I'm going to stop there for a moment. Again, I'm going to bring it back. This is totally maybe a coincidence, but this I found kind of funny. And also, this says that the lower echelon kingdom is then networked. So it's all joined together. Muscle groups. Well, the muscle, okay, let me go back to, let me go backwards just for a minute. Let me go back to the future. So fractal, if you guys aren't sure what that is, look it up. I'll include a link on here if you really want to nerd out. I want to go back to the subscape. So I'm going to play with this a little bit. And down the rabbit hole we go. This entire subscape, so everything below us, like under our feet, but I also see this as below the earth. I could refer to this as inner earth. And if I look up what scape is, I was curious what the etymology is. Well, that comes from rod, which is related to scepter, which I found really interesting. Now, that's a whole new arena if we're going to play with that. Landscape, an extensive view or scenery. So obviously we know it below it, but why was the original word of scape, landscape, related to rod? And that makes me think of the poles, right? The poles shifting. Thy rod and thy staff shall comfort me. It makes me think of the body, the spine, the rod in the body, and on an energetic level, the center of our being, the rod and the staff, and then it's related to scepter. So if you look at a scepter, this is what it looks like. And why do we think certain people carry a scepter and an orb? What do we think that represents, right? What is that code for? I'm gonna have to do a whole new video on that one. But when I see skeptron, I think of skeleton. That's just my play with words. Now, if I go into this, it says they use it as a symbol of sovereignty. That's interesting. So I'm going to go into so many different places here, perhaps at a later time, but just a really goofy share. All right, so if you look up scapula, and I'm just going to kind of share scapula, here's what it looks like. I'm on Wikipedia, okay, which I found interesting, and it's obviously has a certain shape to it. This isn't my favorite picture, but it's a scapula. Thorax, shoulder girdle, right? Latin for the word shovel, resembles a shovel, you know, but what it also in my mind resembles, doesn't this kind of look like a scapula? I'm not sure if South America looks more like it or Africa looks more like it. I'm undecided. Both of them, but at one time, look at how those puzzle pieces fit together. So maybe that's why. I'm just playing here down the rabbit hole. But what's more interesting about that shape is when I went in to look at it, the Roman Catholic Sacramental Pendant. And here we're back to scepter. The scapula, shoulders, is a Western Christian garment, and they're for monastic devotional scapular. I am not Catholic. I know nothing about this. So I'm going to have to play with this. But why? I think there's something bigger to all of this. Why would they call it that? Well, it goes over the scapula, over the shoulders. I would be a little, I mean, yoke of Christ. Ooh, now we're getting juicy here, because that makes me think of the pineal gland and the heart. So we'll have to play with this, and maybe I'll add to this at the end. But this, you see where this Soma word grouping, and where the mapping system is pulling me into all of these directions to pull it back into the whole piece. Subscapula, underneath the scapula. So I'll have to come back to that. Lower echelon kingdom is then networked. The muscle groups join together. Join conjunction aqueducts reunite. So aqueducts are canals. Now I see this as happening in the body as well. What if each scapula is one's on one side, one's on the other, we're joining all of these muscle groups. The muscles are support. They're movement, right? They make the body move. They're supportive of the body. Without the muscles, we would just be, you know, blobs. And so also I think of strength. The groups that are strong, the ones that were separate, are now going to come together and they're going to reunite underground. Okay, you could look at this as positive. You could look at this, I see this as light, as a good thing, because this is what it's referring to. There is a counter fight to make these adjustments. So there's going to be some shuffling. Every day I'm shuffling so that the adjustments can be made. So I'm talking social, political, but also having to do with the earth. So there's certain channels in the earth that are going to join, where we maybe didn't know that that tunnel connected with that other tunnel. And all of a sudden those tunnels open and we see the connection. Maybe there's areas under the earth that are literally in the water, under the ocean, that we all of a sudden make these connection points and reunite. But I'm seeing that there's a counter to this. So there's going to be a fight that don't want these adjustments. Of course, that's how it works. That's the scales. Stormtroopers, flight of the storm. This could have something to do with weather. Flight of the Conchords, and this is a play on words as well. Hopefully it'll just be comedians. If you haven't seen Flight of the Conchords, it's such a great show. But I wrote Concordians. We access another dimensional stream of consciousness, and this creates a Mobius strip of time travel. Now I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to start my next video on that, because now we're getting juicy. And I might find out more information on the scapula, but let's kind of just talk briefly, and I'll end on this. Well, I'll do to be continued. So it's agreements, concords. So I'll make that the beginning of the next video that I do. We'll go into that a little bit deeper, and we'll just kind of play with that and see where we're guided to go. And so if you made it this far, thank you so much for playing with me in this word play. And yeah, I just have so much fun doing this, and I wasn't going to post this video, as oftentimes I don't post all the videos that I make. I just keep them for me sometimes, and sometimes I just think some of the things I post are out there, and then I'll get a question from somebody or a comment that just makes me keep going. So thank you for sharing in this now moment, and to be continued until the next time we meet. In love and light.